Mystery on Bardotta. An oasis of peace during the Clone Wars, the galaxy-wide conflict now threatens the ancient ways of the Bardottan people. With their spiritual leaders mysteriously vanishing, the foundations of order in its system are near collapse. In desperation, the Queen of Bardotta has called upon the Republic Senate with a puzzling request to help save her people from certain doom.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads. Mayvar Tigar. Welcome to our 228th JarJar Binks a Bonanza episode of Mandovision. I'm your host, Narguy Tom, and thank you so much for checking out our small, independent Star Wars podcast. Reach out to us on social media. We are at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. You can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. How is everyone doing? Welcome back. We have entered the home stretch of this, the original final season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars before Disney did its revival for the seventh season. And one thing I was hoping to talk about, we haven't really gotten into it necessarily. You know, we've talked about it in the past, you know, that this all came about, the abbreviated Season 6 of Star Wars: The Clone Wars came about after the acquisition of Lucasfilm by Disney. And, you know, one of the things I was hoping to kind of get into at some point was just to provide a little bit more clarity on that whole situation, because I think sometimes when I'm talking about it, I maybe I gloss over certain aspects of it. It's not to say that when they acquired the Clone Wars, they just, you know, canceled the season halfway through. That's not quite what it was. I mean, they canceled the show with episodes in the can, ready to go, and that's what we're watching now. Originally, when these came out, it was Star Wars: The Clone Wars: The Lost Missions, and it went straight to Netflix, and they all dropped on Netflix at the same time. That's why, if you've noticed, as I'm saying, those original air dates for each episode, they're all the same. They're all March 7th, 2014 for this batch of episodes, because when Disney canceled the show, it went to there was no season 6. It wasn't going to air. And then eventually they worked out the deal with Netflix, and they put out those episodes that were completed via that format, and then eventually it was released on DVD as Star Wars: The Clone Wars: The Lost Missions. And that's where we are. That's what we're doing. So again, if you've noticed that, if you've sort of wondered, like, it seems like he's saying March the 7th for every episode lately, I am. And I was just sort of waiting. You know, I sort of toyed with the idea of just having a special kind of like bonus episode where we just sort of talked about all the stuff that went into to getting the final season, or what we thought was the original final season, onto Netflix, and how that all came about. But honestly, it didn't sound like it was bonus worthy material. You know, not for a whole episode. I could just get it into the intros on a normal episode of the show. So that's what we just did. And there you have it. So that's why they're all March 7th, because they all dropped on Netflix at the same time. Before we get into the episode proper, there is a little tiny nugget of Star Wars news that we can talk about. And that's basically a press release from somewhere for I think Disney in the UK, maybe it's Amazon in the UK. I can't quite remember. Where it talked about the upcoming slate of Marvel and Disney shows for 2024, and it interestingly enough didn't have the Bad Batch on there, but maybe it was more focused on the live action, and it mentions Skeleton Crew and Acolyte. What it does not mention is Andor season 2, which by all measures is a victim of the writer strike, the actor strike, all those strikes, and it that it caused a pause in production. They tried to marshal things forward, but eventually they just couldn't do it, and then the actors went on strike too, so it wasn't going to happen anyways, and that has subsequently led to Andor being very likely pushed into 2025. So while that is disappointing news, I'm not too mad about it because I am A-okay with Tony Gilroy and his team of awesome writers and directors and creatives behind the camera, in front of the camera, taking their time and making a show worthy of living up to season 1, which you all know I thought was simply sensational Star Wars, and I couldn't get enough of it. I was eating it up. It was so great. So take your time by all. Just take it. Just take the time. I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to be on the internet slamming my virtual fist into the table and where's my Andor? Not going to do it. Not going to do it, friends. All right, so we do have an episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars to get into. And again, like I said, we're in sort of the final stretch here, and we are in a very interesting two-parter. The Disappeared Part 1 and Part 2. They didn't really think too hard on these episode titles for this one. But it features the return of JarJar Binks in a way that is unique and interesting, I think, and kind of gives us a little bit more into JarJar. And I really enjoy it. What's also fun about this episode is we see another aspect of Force users, and Force users who seemingly vehemently disagree with Jedi philosophies and to the point where the Jedi aren't welcome on their planet. And I think that's interesting. I really like that sort of thing. It's unique in again, it's as much as I love the Star Wars universe, we don't get a lot of opportunities to dive deeper into the galaxy at large and all the different various beliefs and things like that. There's just not enough what's considered canon material these days. It's hopefully something that gets corrected moving forward. Like Star Wars can be such an enriched place. We just need to kind of keep churning out the content that will make it so. But for the time being, we have to kind of take these little nuggets that they give us and kind of go from there and see if they can be used across other medias. Now, again, we've talked about it before. The problem with that is that shows and movies are always going to trump what shows up in a book or in a comic book or any other piece of secondary, pardon the expression, piece of media. And that's a bummer. It really, really is. I wish they did a better job of trying to incorporate all the aspects of Star Wars storytelling into one cohesive tapestry, if you will. Like the way they it felt like they made an effort to do that back in the old Lucasfilm days, but not so much currently. Like I said, the books and the comics will be completely overwritten if something that can be sold on the screen or in the theaters wants to do it their way. Like, they just, for example, they just did another version. Again, it's sort of funny to think about because I'm old enough to remember the first time they told the story of the rebels of Princess Leia and Luke trying to get the carbonite frozen body of Han Solo back before he can be delivered to Jabba the Hutt on Tatooine. Well, Marvel just told a new version of that story. But guess what? If some director comes along and pitches an idea to Kathy Kennedy and Bob Iger and it's like, hey, I want to tell a story about Boba Fett trying to get Han Solo's frozen carbonite body to Tatooine, and they're like, yeah, okay, do it. And all that stuff that I just talked about, all that stuff that we read months and months and months ago, will be thrown out the window. And it is what it is. That is unfortunately the nature of the beast with licensing properties. But anyways, let's get back into this episode because not only does it have different Force users and the return of Jar Jar Binks, but it's also Jar Jar Binks teamed up with Mace Windu, which is a very interesting pairing. And you couple that together with sort of a Star Wars riff on Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That's pretty fun. I love that movie. I'm game for sort of a Star Warsy version of it, with this fangirl cult, which is basically the Tuggy cult. I really dig it. There's a lot in this episode that I found very, very fun and very, very enjoyable. So let's go ahead, get into the episode proper. This is Star Wars The Clone Wars, Season 6, Episode 8, The Disappeared, Part 1. Original air date, March 7th, 2014. Written by Jonathan Rinsler. Directed by Stuart Lee, with another that's just wonderful voice cast. Ahmad Best as Jar Jar Binks. Terrence T.C. Carson is Mace Windu. Ami Solka is Queen Julia. Cass Anvar is Patine, a.k.a. the Fangirl leader. You got Paul Nakochi as Savette. James Arnold Taylor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Tom Kane is our narrator. And Tim Curry returns as the voice of Chancellor Palpatine. And our plot for this week. The peaceful world of Bar Data and its mystic ways are threatened by an ancient prophecy, and its top spiritual leaders have vanished. And that's it. That's the plot. Here's our JFC. Without darkness, there cannot be light. All right. So, like I said, Jar Jar Binks. We got Dagoyan Masters. These are the Force users. The Fangirl cult. Queen Julia with the crazy name, right? It's so simple and so human. And we had Temple of Doom Light. So let's go ahead and get into it. And you know what that means, my friends. It is time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Representative Binks? Why would the Queen of Bardata request the presence of Jar Jar Binks?
I'm afraid she would not say, but she impressed upon the Senate the urgency of their situation.
And what exactly is the trouble on Bardata?
Several of the ancient mystics, the Dagoyan Masters, have disappeared.
A strong connection to the Force, the Dagoyan Masters have. Yet, unlike the Jedi or Sith, they are warriors. They are not. Intuition, knowledge, the harmony of the universe is what they sense. Passively, they connect with the Force.
I wonder why the Queen doesn't want a Jedi sent to solve this mystery.
Long ago, inducted into the Jedi Order, Bardatan children were. However, thieves, the Jedi were named by the Dagoyan.
The Dagoyan Masters believe the Jedi took the children against their will. We were labeled as kidnappers.
Chancellor, am I to understand the Queen requested Representative Binks go alone to Bardata?
I'm afraid she was quite specific on that point.
I think that course of action is unwise. If there is trouble on Bardata, I'm afraid Representative Binks will be out of his depth.
I agree, which is why I came to you. We await your decision.
Are you volunteering to undertake this mission, Master Windu?
If the Council agrees, yes.
See, that's all very interesting to me. I love the idea of a culture of a people who consider the Jedi to be kidnappers. And, that is something that has been touched upon in other Star Wars stories, but and probably more well thought out in those other stories. But again, I'm having trouble remembering if those stories are now still considered to be canonical or not. So, again, for it to be lightly touched upon here in Star Wars The Clone Wars, I found very, very cool and very interesting. Again, I like different perspectives of the Jedi and different ways of interpreting the Force and how to use it. Again, we get into these things a lot in other pieces of Star Wars media, but we often don't get it in sort of like the main canon. And I wish we did have more time to do that. It is interesting. Everyone's sort of sheer disbelief at the notion that Queen Julia is requesting Jar Jar Binks, Representative Jar Jar Binks, to come to her aid with the disappearance of the Dagoyan Masters. And they all kind of search for the reason. They don't really know, they don't understand, but I guess they have to go along with it. So they decide that Mace Windu is going to tag along with them to create a dynamic duo like none other before it. And again, on the journey to Bardota, Mace questions if Jar Jar is the right person for this. Is this, are you? I think he even asked him like bluntly, like, are you the Representative Binks that Queen Julia is asking for? And he's like, oh yeah, that's my friend Queen Julia. And we're all sort of like, what the heck does that mean? But we get answers to that pretty soon, but not yet. Just wait for it. So now Jar Jar is on Bardota. He is with a Jedi who was uninvited, and they have an audience with the Queen. Let's go ahead and play this because it sets up for an interesting dynamic.
Representative Binks of the Republic, you were requested to come here alone. Why have you brought this Jedi to Bardota?
Oh, great Queenie Julia, please forgive Misa. This Jedi is Mr. Paolo. He's coming here to be helping Misa solve your troubles.
He is your servant, then?
Yes, that is the truth. Master and Mace is Misa humble servant.
Very well. Jedi, because Jar Jar Binks vouches for you, I will allow you to stay here. For now, you must wait in the antechamber.
So I found that all very amusing, especially the look on Mace Windu's face when Jar Jar calls him his servant. It is nothing but chuckles to me. So let's hear the finish. Now that Mace has been being escorted out. And again, Mace isn't very trusting of Jar Jar. Like, Mace has zero confidence that Jar Jar can get this done. So him leaving the room, that rankles Mace Windu, right? Yeah. And, it's never explicitly said in this episode, but there is a very similar a sort of vibe between the Bardotans and the Gungans. So I think that leads to some commonalities that may be of note coming up, if you know what I'm saying. We'll get to it in a minute.
Jar Jar, we are in danger. An ancient prophecy is coming true. Our beloved Dagoyan masters are disappearing one by one. And if they are not returned, a darkness will arise that will engulf the galaxy.
Misa not letting that happen, milady.
High Seneschal Padine, I must speak to Representative Binks. Alone.
All right, so what we're going to find out what that means. Well, we're going to find out what that means here real quick, because someone's going to get some smoochy smooches, and it's Jar Jar Binks and Queen Julia, which, yes, indeed, folks, that does mean that Jar Jar gets down. And, yeah, why not? Hey, good for Jar Jar. Let's let it go. Let's let it happen. But this alone time for Jar Jar and Queen Julia, where they can become reacquainted, quote unquote, it doesn't sit well with Mace Windu, who is, chomping at the bit here to solve this mystery. So he's going to reach out to Yoda. Let's go ahead and, let's just go ahead and play this little bit here as Jar Jar and Julia get their smooches on.
There is a great disturbance in the Force here. That much is certain. I can sense it all around me.
Difficult to see. Such disdain for the Jedi there is on Bardota. A good place for evil to hide, it may be. Yet remember, drifting within the flow of the living Force, the minds of the Dagoyan Masters are. Essential this connection is, whether friend to the Jedi they be, or not.
If you're looking for a friend of the Bardotans, look no further than Representative Binks. The Queen has been alone with him for quite some time now.
The innocence of a child this Gungan has. Perhaps appealing to the Dagoyan. His mind is.
Well, my mind would be more at ease if I knew what they've been up to.
I don't think he wants to know what they've been up to. You just don't want to go there, Master and Mace. No, sir. Not at all. And now this is when Mace gets a little aggressive for my tastes. His sort of insistence that he be present at any sort of discussions going on, and he tricks these poor Bardotan guards into chasing him, and then just uses the Force to be up really, really high so they can't find him. Because the Bardotans are small. They're small people, but they build their palaces very, very tall. You know, like huge hallways, huge arches. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me from an I almost said archaeologist, and I think that's because I'm getting ready to do all the Temple of Doom stuff here. But I simply meant from the architect perspective that I don't know why a species so short would insist on having walls so high. But it is what it is. So again, I'm going to say it again. What Mace does here I think is uncool, but I do like that the Goyans can't. They are resistant to his attempts to influence them, which is, again, leads to that chase that I found to be a bit childish for Mace Windu to do. And again, okay, cool, the Goyans can't be swayed by Jedi influence and mind control and that sort of thing, but they can easily be manipulated into following a Jedi around a corner and then him just being up so high that they can't see him. So it doesn't look good for the Dagoyans. I know I called them the Bardotans earlier, and I did not mean to say that. So I apologize. I apologize to Dagoyans everywhere. And now we get Mace storming into the room, demanding that he be seen, that he be part of these discussions, just as Queen Julia was about to share with JarJar what the heck is going on. But Mace's presence upsets the queen, and those guards have to escort him out, and now she needs a minute to kind of compose herself while JarJar sees to Mace out. But Mace is getting real fed up. And again, it's not like, Jedi need to be a little bit more patient, I think, and JarJar tries to tell him that. It's like, hey, I was about to find out everything, but you came storming in there, and you blew it.
Oh, careful!
What do you think you're doing? Where were you last night?
Doing? Misa loved the Queen Julia. What's wrong with that?
You are jeopardizing the mission.
No, Master and Jedi. Misa's love for beautiful Julia is the only thing starting the talks. She's a trust in only Misa. Oh, and now Ursa. A little.
You must understand, JarJar. The Force is strangely out of balance here. Did the Queen tell you anything important?
That's what she was trying to do before you should come in all hot like.
Take this. Since they seem to want to keep us separated, contact me if you learn anything useful.
Okay, die, Master and Mace, but only if Queenie thinks it's all right to tell you.
All right, so Mace has handed a communicator to JarJar so they can stay in touch. But as JarJar returns to Julia, we find that she is missing now, a room with no other doors, and Queen Julia has been disappeared. And that sends JarJar into a bit of a tailspin. All right, so let's go ahead and lay out the next audience that JarJar and Mace has for trying to locate the missing Queen Julia.
Guards! Baktav Toy!
There can be no doubt. The prophecy is being fulfilled as it was written. First, the Dagoyan masters disappeared, and now the queen. If she does not return in 3 rotations, I'm afraid she'll be gone forever, and an era of darkness will rise throughout the galaxy.
Distinguished Council, if I may.
The coming of the Jedi was a sign! It was a sign! The Armageddon of Doom! The Armageddon of Doom! Council! Oh, great Bardata Council! Please, you must listen to Misa. Queenie Julia was me Bombad Paolo for many years. She's knew there'd be troubles here. That's why she's calling Misa to help in your time of need. Misa taking my loyal helper. Master and Mace, and we finding the Queenie and bringing her back into USA.
Ask them about the origin of the prophecy.
Now, let Misa asking you, so where this prophecy coming from?
All right, let's pause it right there real quick. I enjoy Jar Jar stepping up like that. I think that's good stuff. I really, really dig it. Stop hating on Jar Jar, old people. Yeah, you heard me. This is good stuff. And his pal Mace Windu. I mean, come on, Master and Mace himself. This is good stuff. How are you not having fun yet? And the Temple of Doom stuff is about to begin. And again, we only got a hint of the prophecy, right? But if the Queen has disappeared, a new era of darkness will rise in the galaxy. Guess what, Bardotans? It's coming, man. The Dagoyans are onto something. Maybe not exactly what they're picturing, but that era of darkness is going to begin one way or the other. They got half of it right, that's for sure. All right, so let's go ahead and lay out the prophecy itself.
They are the words of the Frangal clan, who worshipped Malmoral, the ancient demon of our faith. Their ancient shrine is located under our present-day temple, far beneath the surface. It is a cursed place, an evil place.
All right, now I want to pause it right there, too, because that's interesting as well, because of all the lore around the Jedi that says that beneath the Jedi Temple on Coruscant is an ancient Sith temple itself, built on top of, the Jedi built on top of that ancient Sith temple. So you're seeing some similarities between the Jedi and the Dagoyans after all, which is very, very interesting. All right, now we're getting into some straight Temple and Doom stuff. Cursed place and evil place. Let's let it go.
No one who enters those caverns ever returns.
Then that is where we must look first.
Then that's where we be going first.
All right, so there you go. Now they're going to go off on their mission, and it's time to begin our Temple of Doom-like adventure. And it's going to be fun, as Jar Jar gets to experience being disappeared as well. The Dagoyans are using, the Fangirl cult specifically, are using some kind of magic blue glowy powder to make you invisible, and then they shepherd you away. I found it amusing the way Jar Jar can't see himself, and the way it sort of spins him out a little bit. I was amused by all that. But let's go ahead and we'll move ourselves forward a bit here in the episode, because Jar Jar's going to get disappeared. He's going to end up with the captured Dagoyan masters, and we begin to find out what they're being captured for, what they're being used for. Like they're being harnessed, and their force energy is being drained from them and put into like this big giant glass ball. And well, let's just get to the next scene. All right, so Jar Jar captured, Mace looking for them, and again, this is where we begin to get our very Temple of Doom like motifs. You get to see a ceremony that the Fangirl cult is performing, and again, if you're not picking up those Temple of Doom vibes, you're not trying that hard. So let's check it out as Queen Julia sort of explains exactly what's happening.
Julia!
Jar Jar.
Misa here to rescue you, sir.
Jar Jar. They are stealing the Force. They are stealing the Force within us.
All right, now we begin the ceremony. I'm not going to play that part, but it's really cool, and there's some really neat animation in here. And again, this is where that Temple of Doom light motif is the strongest, and I enjoy that. So what you get next here is the big action piece of the episode, where Mace arrives to sort of thwart the efforts of the Fangirl cult. And I think it's a really fun action sequence. It's not like super intense Jedi combat, but there's some really good stuff in it. A lot of back and forth. Jar Jar gets in the mix. He's trying to save Julia, but the leader of the Fangirl cult makes their escape from the Temple of Doom, and it leaves our heroes in the lurch. They don't know what to do next. We see them take off in a rocket ship heading towards one of the moons of Bardota, and that leaves our heroes in a precarious place moving forward. Now they are back and getting another audience to fill in the remaining Dagoyan masters of the situation.
The demonic cult of Malmoral is active once again. If they steal the essence of the Queen, darkness will fall across the stars.
Misa no bombard warrior. but Misa swearing to find you, Sir Queenie, with the help of Misa Bombat Paulo, mastering Mace.
Jar Jar, maybe it's this place, but you're starting to make sense to me.
So that's what I'm saying right there. What a dynamic duo Mace and Jar Jar turned into, right? I don't know. I have a lot of fun with this episode. It's got like that weird sort of like 48 Hours, Eddie Murphy, Nick Nolte kind of vibe between Mace and Jar Jar. At first, again, not quite as aggressively violent and racist as that movie may have been, but again, Jar Jar Mace doesn't like Jar Jar too darn much at the beginning of this. He kind of grows on him by the end. They have an adventure together. They have a good time, and maybe it is this place. But Mace Windu starting to understand, and Jar Jar starting to make some sense to him nowadays. And again, the Goyans seeming to be really happy that they have some other people who aren't Dagoyans to do their dirty work for them. So now our heroes have pledged themselves to venturing forth and recovering the Queen, defeating the Fangirl cult, and avoiding this prophecy to come true. I think this is a really fun episode. It's an easy 7 buckets for me. I love the Temple of Doom illusions and that whole sort of tribute to Temple of Doom, because I really like that movie. So yeah, 7 buckets. It's just a fun one, And again, you get some new insights into Star Wars and Force users, and I like that too. I'm here for all that all day long. So, what do you think? You guys agree, or you just hate Jar Jar so much that you can't see past it? Because that's what a lot of the reviews for this episode were based on. So, that's just my 2 bits on that right there. But again, hey, just wait for part 2. So, this has been the Mandovision Podcast. My name is Tom. I am your host, Nargai Tom. And we really appreciate you checking out and supporting small independent Star Wars podcasts like ours. We really, really do love that. And Buckethead Nation, you continue to be the best supporters on the internet. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Make sure you and your friends are following us on the social medias. We don't post a ton, but we do post on occasion. Mando, it's at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, following, and sharing the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. If possible, and you're so inclined, if your podcasting platform does 5-star reviews, give them to us. We really, really help. They really help shows out a lot. They help defeat the tyranny of the algorithm. And we hate the algorithm and its tyranny. So thank you in advance for doing that. All right, Bucketheads, go out there. Be great Star Wars fans. The holiday season is upon us. Hopefully that finds you in a good place. But the Star Wars Mandovision Podcast will be here for you throughout the holidays. Whether you're the biggest Christmas or Hanukkah supporter around, or if you couldn't stand any of the holidays, we'll be here for you. All right, that's what matters the most. All right, my friends, Buckethead Nation, you are the best. Let's get out of here. You know what that means. This podcast, it can only end one way, my friends. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. You expect me to search the galaxy for the home of this creature and deliver it to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.